Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me, as always, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is we are returning to Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man today. We talked about the first couple episodes a few weeks ago. Now that the entire season 1 has wrapped up, we are here to kind of do our full, retrospective on season 1 and talk through all of the episodes. Probably won't focus too much on the first couple episodes since we already talked at them at length. And these tend to be a little bit more like end of the season heavy, so we'll probably focus largely on the last couple episodes that came out this week. But we'll cover kind of everything else over the course of the season as well. Why'd we pick it? Because season 1 just wrapped up, as I said. Our history lesson here. This was originally released January 29th through February 19th, 2025. With the runtime of 29 to 33 minutes per episode. I really appreciated how consistent the runtime of these episodes was, and seeing how very little fluctuation was. Like most of the episodes were 31, 32 minutes. Only one episode was 29 minutes, so it was pretty much all right in that 30-minute ballpark. In our Marvel TV timeline of things, we had What If Season 2 was the end of 2023. We had Echo beginning of last year, January 10th, 2024. We had Agatha All Along in September and October of last year, followed by What If Season 3 in December of last year. Now we have Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man here, January and February, which will lead right into, in a couple weeks, Daredevil Born Again, starting on March 4th. Then we have Ironheart slated for June 24th, 2025. Eyes of Wakanda slated for August 6th, 2025. Marvel Zombies coming in October, and Wonder Man coming in December. Full slate after a relatively quiet last year, both on the movie and TV front. 2025 is the year that Marvel is coming back with vengeance, ? Given the maybe lukewarm reaction that I think Captain America Brave New World received in its opening weekend last weekend, but I'm sure we'll talk about that again sometime in the future. Well, maybe. We talked about it on the podcast. I'm maybe we'll talk about it, maybe we won't. Who knows? All right. Our roll call here. We talked about in the past run, Melchior Zweyer directed Amazing Fantasy, aka episode 1 of the show. And then they were also the supervising director for the series. So technically they're credited on every episode, but they kind of stepped back into a supervisory role, I think, for the rest of the run. They directed, they've also worked on The Legend of Korra for a handful of episodes, Star Wars Rebels for a handful of episodes, and Young Justice. Liza Singer, we talked about last time. She directed The Parker Luck. She also went on to direct the Hitting the Big Time, Duel with the Devil, Tangled Web, and Hero or Menace episodes. So 5 episodes overall for Liza. Their other work is largely as a storyboard artist. But then from the directorial front, this was largely, apart from one episode of a show called The Harper House, this was pretty much their directorial debut. So nice job to them. And then the new director in this mix that we had not seen yet in our last run was Stu Livingston, who did Secret Identity Crisis, The Unicorn Unleashed, Scorpion Rising, and If This Be My Destiny. And I did overlook them in terms of pulling their stuff in, but other things they've directed include Disenchantment, The Owl House, lots of animated TV stuff. 23 episodes of Steven Universe.
Oh, nice.
As a storyboard artist.
That's not a show you and I have ever watched, is it?
No, okay. I've heard great things about it.
Heard wonderful things about it.
Yep. Not a ton on the directorial front. 17 episodes of Craig of the Creek, which I believe is one we talked about.
Craig of the Creek rules.
Yeah. He also did the he was a co-director on Hey Arnold, the Jungle movie back in 2017, which I did not know was a thing.
That's the one where they go into what happened to Arnold's parents.
All right. To me, that comes 15 years after I thought Hey Arnold was off the air. So, yeah, I didn't know it was still running that late, or that they did like a revival or something. But anyway, shout out to Stu Livingston on that front. Our writers, we talked about them last time, but Jeff Trammell is the showrunner and also wrote on Amazing Fantasy, Secret Identity Crisis, The Unicorn Unleashed, Hero of Menace, and If This Be My Destiny. The writer of miscellaneous TV shows going back to 2017, most notably Craig of the Creek. And then Charlie Nooner had written The Parker Luck, and went on to also write Hitting the Big Time, Duel with the Devil, Tangled Web, and co-wrote If This Be My Destiny, the final episode. Prior to this, they worked on one episode of The Loud House and then into Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So another kind of, knocking it out right out the gate. And then the third writer, who only worked on Scorpion Rising, is Raven Kone. And this was their writing debut. This is the only thing on their IMDb. So shout out to that. Our cast of characters, we talked about previously Hudson Thames as Peter Parker, miscellaneous credits going back to 2006. Carrie Walgren as May Parker, hundreds of IMDb credits, including Katana and Melina from Mortal Kombat and Ash from Final Fantasy XII. Grace Song as Nico Minoru, with miscellaneous credits going back to 2003. Eugene Bird as Lonnie Lincoln. He was Andy in the Arrowverse. He's also Dell in Gears of War 4 and 5, and his various roles in The Legend of Vox Machina. Zeno Robinson as Harry Osborn, another one with tons of IMDb credits, including Cyborg in Young Justice and Hawks in My Hero Academia. Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn from Lincoln and Selma and Fear the Walking Dead and Sing Sing. Kathy Ong as Pearl Pangan. She's worked on Harley Quinn and Star Wars Tales of the Empire. The new one of kind of who I elevated to like core cast here is Hugh Dancy, who makes a later in the season debut as Dr. Otto Octavius. Hugh Dancy previously having been in stuff like Ella Enchanted, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, Hannibal, and recently he's had a run on Law & Order, the OG Law & Order. And then we talked about a whole bunch of one-offs or miscellaneous kind of additional voices people. So I've got some that we already covered, but then I'll throw in a handful of new names at the end. Robin Atkin Downs plays Doctor Strange, who we ended up seeing again come the end. I thought that was a fun tie back. Is also known for Travis Touchdown and Navarro and Talbot from the Uncharted games. Phil Lamar, done Samurai Jack and Hermes and Futurama. Roderick Craig Smith is the coach. He also plays Dmitry Smerdyakov, a.k.a. the Chameleon.
Yep.
And then he's known as Ezio, Batman, and Sonic. He also, in one of the little trivia things, the duo, like the Bonnie and Clyde villains that we see.
Yeah.
I forget who they're supposed to. I think the guy is Speed Demon. I forget who the girl was. But Speed Demon, also voiced by Roger Craig Smith, and the trivia was like, that's funny because he also voiced Sonic. Gotta go fast.
Yeah.
Paul F. Tompkins as Bentley Whitman, Mr. Peanut Butter from BoJack Horseman, also from a recent Very Important People on Dropout. Zara Fazal as Dr. Connors, having been Wonder Woman in the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game. Alex Lee as Amadeus Cho, Jin Woo Sung in Solo Leveling, as well as Gigi and Joji in Dan Da Dan, and Aiji Mitamura in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Erica Luttrell as Asha, was Zoe in Horizon Forbidden West, as well as Shuri in the Marvel's Avengers Black Panther DLC. And Anjali Kunapaneni as Jean Foucault, who was she was Leon in Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, as well as Yuki Tsukumo in Jujutsu Kaisen. And then the new batch of names that we did not cover last time. Ettore Yuen, aka Big E, plays Bulldozer in the 110th Street or 110th Street Gang. Of course, WWE wrestler of the New Day. New Day sucks. New Day sucks.
New Day justified.
I mean, I'm all for it. I love the heel turn of New Day.
He got the Majin thing on his shoulder, which means he's like the evil version of himself. There's layers to it, man. I'm loving the run.
Yeah. Charlie Cox appears as Daredevil, reprising his role, of course, from the MCU. Travis Willingham is also in the Russian gang as Mikhail Sistovich, a.k.a. possible Rhino, or Rhino's father, depending on how they're going to play it out. He also is the voice of Thaddeus Ross in this incarnation, of course, from Critical Role and many a voice role over the years. Sarah Natacheni as Mila Masaryk, aka the Unicorn. She's been the voice of Ash Ketchum since 2006. Zach Cherry reprises his role as Clev on the streets of New York from MCU. He's also in Severance and Fallout. I put his name down wrong. I believe it is Josh Keaton. Yeah, Josh Keaton.
Yeah, Josh Keaton.
Makes a surprise cameo in the final episode as Richard Parker, aka Peter's dad, which is a fun nod because, of course, he was Peter Parker in the Spectacular Spider-Man series that ran 2008 and 2009. I'm sure there are a handful of other people out there, but I think that's enough names to to go through over the course of this show.
Yep. Also, fun enough, he's the last person to play Peter Parker prior to the Disney acquisition of Marvel.
There you go.
So
he does. He was in a lot of Spider-Man games. I thought one of the fascinating things was in the original run of Spider-Man games based on the Tobey Maguire movies, he was the voice of Harry Osborn in those games, and then would go on to play Spider-Man himself. And of course, he also cameoed in Invincible as like that Spider-Man that wasn't actually Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then also he cameoed in Across the Spider-Verse as his Spectacular Spider-Man guys.
He's
trivia.
also, I was just going to say, he's also Revolver Ocelot and Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Snake Eater. He's a very great. He's an amazing voice actor.
Yeah. When I get to like, hey, here's a flurry of like, the also ran names, I usually only pull like one thing for them.
Yeah.
But yes, all of them have done many a thing. So some of the trivia here for you from the later half of these episodes, a lot of them of the Easter egg variety, but we have Osborn dismissing the idea that Otto could ever harness the power of the sun, as of course a nod to Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
When Peter has Harriet and Nico over for movie night, he offers up Zaniac and Tombbuster. Zaniac was a movie featured in Loki season 2, and Tombbuster was the movie featured in Moon Knight, the like Indiana Jones we see at the beginning of Moon Knight. The end of episode 8, of course, we have Harry telling Peter, "Go get him, Tiger," when he gives him his new suit, a nod to the classic MJ line.
A little odd, but okay.
Yep. Lonnie completes his transformation into Tombstone after being exposed to the Diox 3 gas among Otto's experiments.
Yep.
And in the little end tease of the finale episode, we see his fingers and hands starting to turn gray, foreshadowing his potential eventual comic book look. Peter says to the symbiote in the finale, "You got to go home, man," as a nod to, or as I read it at least, as a nod to Into the Spider-Verse, since it is obviously one of Miles' little iconic moments in that. We get a little cameo from Uatu the Watcher.
I saw that. I was like, whoa.
Watching over. He also appeared in X-Men 97, so I like that they're tying all of the Marvel animated stuff together with little
Watcher nods.
Yep.
I dig it, man.
He was much more noticeable in this
one,
than X-Men 97.
At one point, Peter's looking up at the sky, and all of a sudden, Uatu's just like there.
Yeah, it's right after he has like his conversation with Doctor Strange at the end, and we see like a big shot of the skyline with like small Peter from behind, and then just big Uatu in the left hand side of the
screen. They're like, hey, people didn't notice him in X-Men 97, so
didn't miss him this time around. Yeah. Absolutely. Harry's little adventure that he's going to do in season 2, Web, the Worldwide Engineering Brigade, is an organization first seen in the California Adventure Web Slingers ride.
Oh,
so
nice.
I popped like crazy for that. I was especially because I'm like, I'm pretty sure the only other thing Webb is actually in is the the Disneyland ride universe.
I've only been on it the one time.
Yep.
So you've been on it way more times than I have.
Indeed. And Harry's whiteboard of candidates includes a number of Marvel characters, if you wanted to freeze frame it. Most notably, you have Max Dillon on there as Electro, of course. A number of the interns that we saw in this season also in there. But also Ned Leeds, a.k.a. Peter's bestie in the MCU, a.k.a. future Hobgoblin, maybe they'll, if they play with that. We also get a tease at the end of Nico's magical amulet and the powers, teasing her, superhero Runaways character origins. And we get the reveal that the intern Jean Foucault is already running around NYC as her alter ego Finesse, working alongside Daredevil. Thought that was a fun little oh, she was the inside man that Daredevil had all along.
Yep. Not only that, but it's like, oh, also she pops up right before, am I not supposed to be on this floor? Mm-hmm. My bad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm like, immediately I was like, aha, I get it.
Yep. So that's what I got for the trivia. So, Cam, what did you think of the rest of season 1 here of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
This show really grew on me. I watched a lot of the episodes back to back, so like my mileage is going to vary from other people who watched it week to week for the most part. But
I mean, even week to week, I appreciated that the release was 2 episodes that first week, then 3, then 3, then 2. So it's like, hey, yeah, if this had been a 10-week series, I probably would have gotten relatively bored. But the fact that like each week it was, I got a couple episodes to sit down and enjoy.
You had minimum an hour of this Spider-Man. And I think that it grew on me a lot, and I ended up really enjoying it by the end. The final episode is possibly one of my favorites of the entire series. Mm-hmm. Just in the way that it really plays into Peter finding his confidence. I think that it really nails the spirit of what Spider-Man is about. It's about, I shouldn't say what Spider-Man is, not what Spider-Man's about, but rather what Peter Parker's journey in becoming Spider-Man is about, which is about finding the confidence to trust yourself, trust your instincts, trust your gut. Because the doubt, and it's interesting to see so many moments where, like, we have the alternate universe where what if Norman Osborn was Peter's mentor?
Yeah. I love the like, with great power comes great respect. And just be like, and that leading to the moment that we get in No Way Home of like a rage-filled Peter ready to, violently take out an enemy before Lonnie steps in. But like, I love that was infused with a very different, iteration of things.
Yep. It's just all part of it. And I think that leads to like a lot of the changes that I didn't see coming, especially towards the end, but it really just climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed. And I kept waiting for like, okay, but where's the pull out? Where's the fake out? Where it's nothing. It's just on its face. It is what it is. It's a story about a young Spider-Man trying to figure out who he is, what it means to be Spider-Man. And it's that hero's journey that it's classic, it's tried, and it's true. But it has enough flavor and twists and turns in it. The thing I like that I think lacks, or that's a bit of a problem, and it really just comes down to the art style they've chosen to go with. This kind of like animated comic book art style. It's not done as well as, Into the Spider-Verse, in a lot of those scenes there. But for me, especially on like face shots, like closing in on somebody's face, and it's like, see this person's expression, and I'm like, this is what I was like, there's something off about the animation. And it really comes down to that there is a lack of detailed motion and expression in the animation when it comes to people's faces that feels like there's a dissonance there. It's not Uncanny Valley territory yet, or not, it's just not Uncanny Valley territory like you get with like people whose faces have been de-aged and stuff like that. But there is like a dissonance in what is clearly meant to be like an emotional scene or something happening, and it's difficult to make it come across because of the limited facial movements that these models have. I think that the trade-off to this really awesome action sequence, the locomotion that this animation style allows them to do to make it feel like comic book is coming off the page and moving and doing things. Yes, if that's the case, then I'm okay with it. But that is like my like small detraction, that it was like consistently every episode we had a moment that was supposed to be like a poignant moment that just doesn't get carried across because of that. But that's just my take on it. That's
fair. Yeah, for me it was never like, I don't love the animation, but it was never distracting enough to take me out of the moments. And maybe I think I was probably just never looking for that level of like emotional connection or emotional catharsis to this, because it's like it's already a very hard task to get that out of me with a comic or a cartoon. So I was more interested in the action or
Yeah.
like yeah, I never found myself saying like sitting there watching being like, oof, that doesn't look great. Like it doesn't look necessarily how I want it to look, but again, as I said, I think when we talked about it in the first couple episodes, I like enough of like the vibe that this look is going. Like, I mean, the look of Otto when Otto pops up and it is that very classic bowl cut, like stupid ass design. I love that. Just like the commitment to like the classic look of these characters.
Yes.
Like more so than like needing a particular like emotional heartfelt connection to a character or something I like that he pops up and I'm just like I can't believe they made him look that stupid. That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, the kind of like modern, like not retro futurism, but like the retro modernism that they're going with. Like Peter, like yeah, it's the same look that he had in the '60s comics, just updated to the modern time.
Yep.
And then you have styles that didn't exist in the '60s, like Nico's, and because of that, Nico's now like they give her muted colors, like the dark green, the black, the gray, and like the couple spots of purple. But because even though it's so muted, those colors are so muted, because she's so distinct, she pops.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of I think it's again it's one of those fascinating things of like. I don't know what the fuck the lead guy was talking about of this shit not being like a woke show. Or
it's
whatever.
The most woke
like,
Spider-Man we've ever gotten.
Because it has such a great blend of like some of these characters very classic and very much look like they're very classic, very early archetypes and designs. But then you have a very diverse new cast that also blends in well with those other designs, but are brand new designs. And like one moment in particular that jumped out at me was the like the showdown face-off between Norman and Otto in the prison kind of sequence of like this very new interpretation of Norman Osborn against the very classic look of Otto, and just loving the like meshing of worlds that is effectively happening in that sequence. Stephen Strange being very much his 60s era Stephen Strange look compared to the more modern take. Daredevil having the same kind of thing, like. So many of those really having like their old classic look up against a new Mac Gargan or something like that.
Yeah, Mac Gargan also being so minimalist with the Scorpion armor was it really, and also him not caring that it's got infused to his body.
Yeah,
because he's a psycho. I'm like loving this interpretation of Mac Gargan.
Yeah.
Also, like it's funny. They have taken classic kind of like quote unquote Italian-esque villains and like given them different like backgrounds. It's not the first time we've seen the Scorpion like be Hispanic or speak Spanish. Like we've seen that in the last couple iterations. But for like it's just interesting to see. It's like I'm like that's interesting. Okay. Because that kind of was the shtick for Spider-Man villains is like they're all these kind of Italian sounding characters or Italian mob sort of like caricatures.
I mean, a lot of them are certainly, but I thought the Rogues Gallery certainly gets more diverse than just Italians.
Sure. No, I wasn't referencing the Rogues Gallery. I just meant like in general, Spider-Man villains are a lot of Italians, a lot of mafioso-esque names. Like I might be also wrong on this, by the way. I'm going to fully admit here, I've not done any research on this. This is just kind of like growing up. My interpretation of
Cameron's prejudice is coming through.
Maybe like, have I always been prejudiced being like, well, if it's a New York criminal, obviously Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you thinking of the Penguin and like the Falcones and what? Because like, yeah, I mean, I think of from the Spider-Man games, specifically the DLC of the first game, like Hammerhead being, he's very clearly like Italian mob boss kind of guy. Yep. But yeah,
I'm trying to remember. This is the thing that I'm now thinking about. I don't know if it's ever popped up. I'm like, was Tombstone always black? Was that was that part of his origin, or was he? But here's the thing: I think I might have been mixing up. This is my problem. I think I mixed up Hammerhead and Tombstone's origins in my head. I think in my memory I've mixed those up.
Yeah, I mean,
because in the game he's a biker character instead of like gangster character.
Yeah.
But like if I remember correctly, yeah, Tombstone was. I felt like it's in the '90s cartoon at the very least. Felt mafia coded rather than gang coded, but
he is depicted. I'm reading from the Wikipedia. Depicted as a hulking albino man. Tombstone is a notorious crime boss in New York City. He was primarily an enemy of Spider-Man and Daredevil. I don't know if it's going to have like a
what's his alias name though.
I mean it's Lonnie. Yeah,
it's Lonnie.
Alonzo Thomas Lonnie Lincoln. So
there you go.
Alonzo Lonnie.
Like I said, a lot of like Italian sounding names for like Mark Gargan. Like a lot of these, it's like, granted, Stanley, Steve Ditko in the 60s and 70s in New York. Like I get it.
Yeah. Mac was McDonald Mac Gargan.
Oh, so he's Irish.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So he was a Mick. Gotcha.
A Mac, M-A-K.
No.
M-A-C.
Mix a derogatory term.
Don't be racist. Yeah, I was trying to save you, and you were going to double down on it.
No, my Irish ass can say it.
I don't think you can. Again, obviously, so I mean, it's a re-envisioning of a lot of characters that we've seen. I mean, going back to even pre Miles Morales and kind of his launch, I think the landscape has largely been like, hey, yeah, maybe all these guys don't need to be white guys, and let's play around with a broader spectrum of New York.
Sure, because New York is the cultural melting pot of the world. Like you want that diversity there because it's great. I love it.
I especially this I like, and we talked about it again in the last episode we did on this. Like I love that this show is as much like it is a twin path story of here's how Peter's path leads him to where he is, and here's how Lonnie's path leads him to where he is. And I love that, like, by the penultimate episode, we get the two of them fighting side by side. Lonnie's still leaning more towards the path of darkness and will continue to as he takes over the 110th Street gang, a la his role in the comics and stuff like that.
But he stops Peter.
Yeah, he helps Peter. He helps especially save Spider-Man from leaning into the darkness and realize like he gives him the like, no man, you gotta represent like the best of us.
Which is, it's crazy to see his descent into villainhood, especially in the end episode. The last episode, he's like full in on it, throws away the Raven's jacket and everything. But just an episode before, he's the one that stops Spider-Man because Spider-Man still inspires him. Like we've never had like, he's just been a crime boss before. Getting him to being like, there's now weight and grit and sadness in the tragedy of Lonnie Lincoln's story now, in how he becomes Tombstone, that we don't like his rise to power, but at the same time, it's interesting because like, will this ever come back up?
Yeah,
and I like that. I like the potential that this gives, rather than making him a one-note villain.
Yeah, I mean, much like the where we see Tombstone in Spider-Man 2, the Marvel game on PlayStation. Like he's there. He's kind of one of the lower tier big bads in the first game, and by the second game, he's like reformed. He's trying to just make it and do his be a mechanic out on Coney Island and stuff like that. And he keeps getting he gets sucked into the and almost sucked into the Craven's Hunt kind of stuff, but like he's out there just trying to be a normal guy. Like Tombstone, just because he has this like invulnerable ability and this super thick skin, whatever, doesn't need to fully go down the path of like bad and evil.
Yeah.
So I can see, and so I love that this is Lonnie was the all-star quarterback. He was the good guy, and he gets caught up in this to save his brother from going down that path.
But then he walks it.
Yeah, but then he embraces it. But he's also still trying to, I think, like he finds community in the
Yes.
gang, and that's what he connects to more so than like, let's be crime.
100%. And it's like, hey, we're stopping the Scorpions from terrorizing our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Don't you like that you can actually like walk the streets? So like we saw walking the streets, not the safest thing in a neighborhood, but the way that it's inferred that it could be worse.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that he makes a choice. It's like, oh, he's doing it to save his brother. It's like at one point, it's not to save his brother anymore. At one point, it's because he's found community there. When he gets the Tombstone nickname, when he is the second or third right hand, right? When he steps up to be the leader after Devon bounces. Donovan, yeah. When Donovan bounces.
After D.
Yeah, after D bounces, he takes up leadership. He goes into the truck to get a weapon. These are deliberate choices he's making. They're the wrong choices. But he's making them for what he thinks are the right reasons.
Yeah.
And we see him, the last phone call, yes, he lies like so blatantly and so openly to his mother.
Yeah, I was like I went back, I was like,
did he get picked for it? Yeah, I had
his name ain't on that list.
Yeah. Nope, his name's not on that list. But it's inferred that, like, oh, is he? It's like, nope, he's not. He's lying to his mom.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my GED. I'm going to be doing this. It's good for college trend. Like, it's these lies that he's just now spewing. And he throws away what was once his, like, the sign of who Lonnie Jackson, quarterback, friend, boyfriend, good, upstanding guy, that symbol of his Letterman jacket thrown in the trash. Like, brutal. Such a brutal, like, it was such a slow sinking knife into your heart that at the very end, it's like that, like it finally ends and places in there. It's like, oh, that's right. He is Tombstone. Awesome. Just awesome, awesome story. Like the story work throughout this entire season. The weird code of honor that the Russian villains have, that Mikhail has. I loved it. I was like, Dimitri, I'm like, is that supposed to, are they going to do that as, I'm like, sure enough, he shows up and he's already raided some of Otto Octavius' stash, picked up the chameleon gear. Loved it. Love that aspect of it. I love that it's like, yeah, he's probably going to be Rhino. I love that it's like, you're like a rhino. No, like a unicorn. I'm like, that's awesome. I loved how like when people get this gear, this power, it shows who they truly are. And that's what shows Peter as a hero is he gets all this power, and Norman calls him out on it too. He says, he goes, you have enough power to do whatever you want, but you're choosing to help people.
Yeah, I like that obviously there's a lovely poetic irony that we the audience have of knowing Norman Osborn the character versus Norman Osborn this iteration. So we know Norman Osborn is always up to some stuff, but him taking on this like mentor role and doing a lot to help Spider-Man over the course of this journey.
It's not nefarious too. He's doing it because he believes in Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's doing it to help Spider-Man to help the city, but he also sees Spider-Man as like a power he can mold and a power he can control to some degree, as we see him, so eager to get all of Otto's stuff. Shout out, I called it, by the way, in the beginning.
You did.
Like,
shout out to you.
That little infinity sign, I think, is Otto Octavius.
And I thought it was going to be like an Oscorp thing, but no, you were right. You nailed it.
But I mean, now it's all Oscorp stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, Daredevil's onto him and trying to plant those seeds in Spider-Man of like, hey, Norman Osborn isn't as great as you think. I love the relationship that we get between him and Harry that like builds up into like his dude in the throne or whatever he calls
dude
it.
in the dude at the desk.
Yeah, dude at the desk.
I wouldn't have called it that,
chair.
but all right.
Yep.
Because earlier doesn't Norman say I can be your man in the chair?
I don't think he.
I think that's us thinking that.
I think and so
because that's the Ned. That's the Ned thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's us looking at Norman Osborn and being like, oh my god, Norman Osborn is his guy in the chair, and then. Oh, he's going to hand that off to Harry to be his guy in the chair, and Harry's like, I'm going to be your dude at the desk.
Loved it. Yeah. Just fantastic. Also, Harry is such a lovable character. Harry can be hit or miss depending on the iteration that you have of Spider-Man. This Harry hits on all cylinders. I love it. Can't believe he's Spider-Man. Like, what? Like, great. We don't have them having like an earlier friendship, that causes that problem. That's reserved for Nico.
Yeah.
That's reserved for Nico in particular. And it's like, but also when they met, he wasn't Spider-Man. And it's like, it has a...
I mean, for about 5 minutes, he wasn't Spider-Man.
There's just layers to the friendships. And I love Harry and Nico bonding eventually.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Also,
with Harry accidentally revealing, like, "Oh, you know Peter? Do you know his real secret?
Do you know his real secret?"
And
like,
I love that
he's Spider-Man.
I love that it is that, like, well, yeah, if you know him, of course you would know this secret. Like, I shouldn't know this secret.
Yeah,
but
I only know it because
so
I was.
Of course, you would know this secret, and
you're his best friend.
It's not coming from any kind of place of like, I know more than you do, and I'm going to taunt you with it. It is like, oh, cool, we can talk about this thing together. Oh, you didn't know.
You didn't know. It's
and
God. That's real.
Oh God, and
that's so real as friendships go. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and I love that. Like he says, like, hey, it wasn't my place to tell. I'm sure he has his reasons, and he's probably doing it. And it is like he is giving all those great, explanations that we so often see of like why Peter kept it secret. But
also emotionally understanding that even if she knows that's the case, she's still hurt.
Yeah.
This emotionally wise Harry Osborn. Also, Harry doesn't like that he's famous.
Yeah.
He's fallen into the fame trap of people who he thinks, oh, you're my friend. They use him. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't have any real friends. And Peter, because they're working together, end up becoming friends. And Peter's like, well, transitive property, Harry and I are awesome friends. Nico and I are awesome friends. Obviously, the two of you should be awesome friends. And it works out, but it takes some work to get there.
Yeah, I'm also curious how deep they're going to go down this, like, is there a will they, won't they thing there with... Because obviously Peter, like, or a love triangle thing, I guess. Because obviously Peter has a thing for Pearl, but we get the vibe, or at least I got the vibe that Nico has a thing for Peter and is disheartened when Harry shows up to what maybe she thought was going to be a date.
Oh, I didn't... Here's the thing. It might be because of like, I mentioned in episode 1, when Nico says about Pearl dating somebody, I at least thought it would be one of us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, well, there is also there is
like a thing at queer element to Nico's character.
Of Nico having kind of a flirtatious moment with Pearl there, too.
She does.
Yeah.
And I think, here's the thing, I think it's they're being very open about it. I did feel like there could be some, like, there was just such an emotional connection between Harry and Nico. I think it could, like, depending on how the writers want to go, they could grow that into a relationship. They could keep Nico as only being into women. But also, yeah, the point you made about does she have feelings for Peter and she thought it'd be a first date? They're not really calling this out. And in a way, it feels natural that way.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we're 16 or we're 15, 16-year-olds. Like, we're, like, I think a lot of times, and especially in the U.S. media, we do this thing where we accept teenagers in media have a deeper emotional intelligence than they do in real life. As somebody who's substitute taught teenagers, this feels authentic and real to me from my observations. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, as a teenager, you always think you're so emotionally mature.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the fact this is observing teenagers as adults observe teenagers.
I mean, the biggest thing, I think the biggest thing, like, we looking back on like that time of our lives, I'm even doing this in my write-up. I'm like, I mentioned to you beforehand, I'm writing my like 40 years of 40 games kind of thing, and I'm at I just did the write-ups for 1999, and I did like hey, check in for where young Trevor is in his life. 1999, I'm starting high school, and like it's a whole paragraph on just like the friends that I had in elementary school, middle school. We kind of start going our separate ways at this point. My best friend growing up, he was a year ahead of me, and so by the time we're in high school, we're both leading very different lives and don't really see each other anymore after that. And the things that the things I'm thinking about as I'm writing this out are, in high school, these were all the most important things in the world. And that's, I think, what like high school can be for a lot of people, is like everything is the most important life is ever going to be, because like it's just, that's the feeling that you can have at that age.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I get to the 2001 entry and I'm like, and here's when 9/11 happened and that changed a whole bunch of shit, is going to be a whole thing. Or like, and it's especially like, that's also it's such a formative time that's when I can actually start pinpointing and remembering, yes, this is exactly what I was doing when I was playing this game, or this is exactly what I was doing this year. I can really remember. Whereas like a lot of elementary school and middle school stuff all just kind of blurs together, and, and
absolutely.
I don't, it's especially in the context of that. Yeah, I probably wasn't playing these games right when they came out. So my context of a game is a couple years later, but now I'm writing it about it in the year before I actually played it or something like that. So, but yeah, I think that is something that like in these high school stories, like whatever relationship is happening is both the biggest thing and also like the thing to be most secretive or most secure or most like keep most to the vest, and not go out and talk about, because you might get hurt, and you don't want to overexpose yourself because of that. You don't want to risk like saying, hey, maybe I have feelings for Peter and that's why I'm so upset. Because what does that mean? And if he doesn't feel the same way, or whatever the case may be.
We're not getting any of those introspection on that. It's just she's bummed out, and it's like it could be as deep as we think it could be. It could be as shallow as it could be. It's open to it, and I like that. I like that they're not shoehorning anybody into any specific role in a sort of romantic sense.
Yeah, the most we see is from Peter's perspective, where we see him react to, wait, Pearl just called me Peter instead of Petey. What does that mean? And like, and we don't like explore it, but like, it is clearly something that he's now overthinking, as we would.
Absolutely.
As certainly I did when a girl said, a thing to me. Oh, that's going to spin off into a 5-hour self monologue of like, wait, what did she mean by that? kind of thing. When I was growing up.
Girl called me cute, and all I could think about is how she was trying to manipulate me.
Okay.
Because I was like, nobody calls me cute.
You were a very hurt child. Got it.
Yeah.
That says so much about you, Cameron. That you didn't like, that you immediately go to like, she's trying to manipulate me.
Well, afterwards I asked her like quietly, I was like, what do you want from me?
Whereas like me, my reactions to that kind of stuff are, and again, this is something that is coming up as I'm writing this like little retrospective thing. I'm like, oh my God, I was so oblivious and dense. There were so many girls that I think back on. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she was totally like flirting with me, and I was just like a brick wall when it hit.
After high school, all my friends telling me about all the people who clearly had a crush on me, and it's just like, you didn't tell me at the time?
Yeah.
Couldn't have let me know? They're like, well, we thought you knew. No, I was constantly, and to your point, I was constantly just trying to think of ways to not kill myself, not die. I was really not okay mentally as a teenager. I was really in a bad place. Obviously by what I said, and you like that laugh I gave was the laugh of like, aha, you got me. Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, I did not think of that, but yeah, no, but back to the story of this. It's
real
awesome.
Quick on the Harry stuff. Did you catch, just because I know you've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals, did you catch that one of his friends in like one of his little Instagram posts or whatever was Luna
Snow?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. It's like the selfie with Luna Snow, and I'm like, is that Luna Snow? I paused it, go back, I was like, that's Luna Snow. They got Luna Snow in there. Let's go. Yeah. Also, we got so much more information. It is very parallel to the MCU's events.
Yeah. We got the Sokovia Accords going off. That's another one of those like classic looks. I love when Iron Man pops up, and it is
when he came in, I was like, oh, that looks so dumb. And then he comes in, is like ready to blast. Is like, this is actually pretty rad.
Yeah,
it's dumb,
but
it's great.
We see news footage of the airport fight from Civil War. We hear that Captain America is, in the wind. So yeah, it's the events of the MCU a la Civil War are still happening in this,
Yeah, that moment where
Peter didn't go. Peter wasn't there.
Tony Stark didn't find out he was Spider-Man and pick him up to go take him over. And so instead, Norman Osborn swoops in and picks him up.
Yeah. But there are obviously there are also like differences. The biggest one maybe being this Peter's origin story, which I love that we circle back to that here in the finale, and it even sets it up with like Stephen Strange showing up and being like, "What are you talking about? I've never I've never been to Midtown. I don't know what you're talking about." And me being like, "Oh my God, they're about to do like a time loop kind of thing." Yep, which is fascinating because they've bootstrapped Paradoxed how this Peter gets his abilities, because it's the spider that has his blood that bites him, and that's how he gets the powers. But he only gets the powers because of this time loop thing.
Predestined bootstrap paradox. It's rad.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's great.
And it was that interesting thing when they set it up an episode or two earlier of like them injecting that spider. It's like, wait, that was the spider from the beginning. Like, am I supposed to see that, like, that spider, because that spider did walk away, did that spider somehow like make its way back into like, and so so there is that thing of like that spider still presumably out there. It's like, oh no, this spider was always in a lab here at Oscorp. Yeah.
Shout out also to I was reminded at the end of the first episode, or at the end of this last episode, Norman finds the symbiote, and I was reminded there's still a piece of the symbiote from Midtown. Oh no, it was the spider. The spider escapes in Midtown.
Yeah, the spider escapes from Midtown, and then the portal closes, and we get like that little
symbiote
bit of the symbiote slipping in.
Love the symbiote aliens, by the way.
Yeah,
love that it's well, we're going to an empty part of space, so it's not going to be dangerous. And it's like it's empty because something has been killing everything there. And love the kind of like venom fly trap, like Hydra. Basically, it was really cool.
Yeah. It's like a symbiote hive or something.
Yeah, just really, really cool stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that, like, that whole thing loops back in on itself. And we get that moment of Doctor Strange realizing, like, he was given enough information to know that this time when we see more of the, the fight stuff from his perspective, he's like, wait, we're not supposed to be here.
It makes so much more sense now why he says that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah. They do a great job of, like, playing it, and then now we know additional context of, oh, it wasn't just him coming through a portal, it was him going back in time, and he realizes now that he was the one that did that. So it's also like, wait, so, like, Midtown, got destroyed a while ago, and you just didn't hear about how that happened? That it was a guy who looks shockingly like you? Weird. But
also, when he showed up, Peter didn't know who he was, and Peter's a big fan of Captain America and the Avengers. So
yeah, well,
we know this is nobody knows who he is.
Again, like in the timeline of the MCU, even Doctor Strange is happening kind of on his own. He's not like, he doesn't really come into the fold of the Avengers stuff until Infinity War and Endgame. Like, he's mostly just kind of isolated doing his own thing. That's when he and Peter meet in the MCU is on the ship going to Titan.
So very different. Yeah, just super different. Man, there's so much about it that I loved, that I just felt like this show just nails.
Mm-hmm.
Tonally, it makes it sense. What I can't say also is, like, what a great way to trick a bunch of, like, say it was planned. What a great way to trick a bunch of incel comic book gatekeepers into watching a woke as hell show. That's just a badumts.
I mean, joke. if they got wind that this was a woke show, they weren't watching. They never watched this.
No. The joke was because the actor said, "Oh, I'm just glad our show's not woke." Like, how many gatekeepers were like, we got to support it, and watched it, and we're like, we're curious how many were like, I like this. It's no DAI. It's no this. And they're just. I hope they're living their bliss and not realizing that they're helping support a woke as hell show.
Yeah.
They certainly don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Certainly not this deep in, so.
Yeah.
Where I talked about not having any more Italians in the enemy.
Yeah. Trying to think.
Christopher Columbus was an explorer. Sorry, I was about to go into a Sopranos spiel, but it's fine.
Do we have any other... Are there any other beats that I want to call out here? I like that. I mean, there are interesting teases here of, like, Octavius's stuff is gamma radiation.
Yes, that was heavy, so cool.
And that's how he gets tracked and stuff like that. It's like, okay.
They broke up because Norman wouldn't let him pursue gamma as a power source. And it's, I love it because it's like, no, Norman Osborn's not a good guy.
Yeah.
But Octavius is so full of himself. But also, on that same note, like we see in that episode where he confronts Otto, we get to see his narcissism just rise to the very surface.
Yeah.
And it's just
now everything
yeah.
you did is mine, and I didn't have to pay you a dime, and I put you in here because I tipped off Thaddeus Ross, and it's like, yeah, he's playing all sides, and it's like, oh, this is not going to end well for him.
And it has nothing to do with I did the right thing. It's I'm so much smarter than you.
Yeah.
It's just it comes down to it. But also he's like, tell Peter, I didn't mean for this to happen. Peter being like, no, but this is what people like you do.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't trust you going forward. I love all of this. All of that everything they're doing with this is just. Oh, also shout out to them being like, yeah, no, Ben's dead.
Yeah. We got a little snapshot of him.
Yeah, we did. 2 snapshots actually. We have the one that Peter looks at, and then one where his dad like puts it up against the window to talk to May, and it's just like, Jeepers Louise, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Because in the comics, Peter Parker's parents were SHIELD agents. I'm real curious what his dad's doing in prison.
Yeah, it'll be. I'll be interested to see where they go with that kind of stuff.
It was such a great end teaser, being like, yeah, you want another season now, don't you?
I mean, yeah, that's this was very much a show knowing that it had a second season.
100%.
So they can spend what would normally be like a mid-credits tease or an end-credits tease. They can just spend the last couple minutes to tee up and say, hey, here's where we're planning to go in season 2. Hope you're here for the ride kind of thing. And I really appreciate that. And yeah, it was like, I love that we got the Green Goblin glider coming to save the day for Peter at one point.
The Green Goblin stuff rescuing Peter is just like bonkers awesome.
I love that the red and blue of Spider-Man's suit is Captain America coded, and that Harry and Peter have like that shared bond of Cap,
which is great. Also, it makes sense why Peter was like starstruck at the portrait of Captain America and Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to like Cap being on the run and Bucky, like they're doing the Civil War stuff and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Which makes me wonder, how like will that continue on? We'll get like more glimpses of like between Civil War and Infinity War events in the rest of the series, or are we going to get like a complete disparate timeline, or are we going to get to a point where like Peter's doing a fight and half the people blip away because all the crazy Thanos stuff still happens, but Peter doesn't blip this time or something like that. Yeah, we're like knowing that this is a similar but not one for one universe to the MCU allows for a lot of like as we touched on in the last episode. Like one of the trivia things was like this was originally pitched as a pre Tom Holland Spider-Man stuff, but it is still that Spider-Man. And they clearly decided, hey, we're going to actually do a different option instead and make it more like an extended What If episode. Yeah. And so I love that, that it continues to give us flavors of like what that version of What If might be.
Also, I want to say they could also do it as like the beginning of like a season, say season 3. Because season 3, Peter's fighting somebody, he gets blipped. He comes back in that same spot 5 years later. What's happened?
Yeah.
That'd be a cool thing too. Like, hey, we're actually going to we are not exploring what happened to Peter stayed around during the blip. He still gets blipped. We're now exploring how does this Peter Parker, this Spider-Man deal with 5 years later? Like, what do you do when all your friends are 5 years older than you?
Yep.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff, man.
Indeed. It'll be interesting to see. I believe it's already been greenlit for both a season 2 and a season 3. So we got plenty of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man still to come in the years ahead. So
I know I mentioned last time, like I really am curious if they're going to land it. I'm really glad that they've landed it.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job with it. Trying to see anything else I want to shout out. I don't think so. So we'll go ahead and dive into the grade, where you grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1, Cameron?
I'm going to give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1 an A.
Yeah, I think it's an A for me too. Solid, fun time. This was one like I was interested and eager to kind of keep up with, and had a great time keeping up with it. Like I feel bad because I still haven't jumped in to catch up on Invincible, even though I've had plenty of time for the last couple weeks. And I very much love that. But like this became like my and not just because of the podcast, because obviously I could have just, caught up on everything, yesterday and been fine, but I was watching it week to week and keeping caught up with it. And it was like the, required viewing that I was doing, like the day it came out. I was like, I want to see where the story goes. I want to see what twists and turns and what like throwback things we get, especially when they started peppering in like little nods and Easter eggs to other incarnations of Spider-Man, like the Go Get 'Em Tiger, like the hold the power of the sun in the palm of his hand or whatever.
Yep.
Like I was like, I want to see more stuff like that. So like that they kept giving us those kinds of beats and stuff. So shout out to that. All right. So yeah, A's from both of us. Other suggestions, other extra credit, other suggestions that you might like if you like this episode or this series of Spider-Man. You've got What If, you got X-Men 97, you got the Spider-Man 2017 to 2020 series, you got Ultimate Spider-Man that ran from 2012 to 2016, you got the 1994 to 1997 Spider-Man, you got 1981's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, you got 1981's Spider-Man, and you got Spider-Man Homecoming with Tom Holland. Spider-Man Far From Home also out on there, but Disney Plus only gives you 8 suggestions. So I'm amazed they didn't give you more of the MCU ones, but whatever.
Yeah.
Extra credit or extracurriculars. Are you watching anything else on Disney Plus here, Cam?
No, this was like the thing I was kind of like gorging over the last couple of days, and yeah. Nothing yet. There's a few things I'm interested in though.
I watched the first couple episodes of Win or Lose, which is also going to be the thing we're going to talk about on next week's show. This is the new Pixar series that just came out or just started this week. It's, I believe, an 8-episode series. I think they're probably doing 2 weeks or two episodes a week or something like that. But it's a little league team basically, and each episode is from a different character's perspective in the week leading up to like the big championship game. Cool. And the first 2 episodes here, like one is like from the perspective of like the coach's daughter who's on the team, and she's not like the best player or whatever, and so it's her anxieties and dealing with that. And they play with some interesting elements to Pixarify it. And then the second episode is like complete 180, because I went in, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm expecting it to be like, each episode from the perspective of somebody on the team. Episode 2, the teacher who is also the umpire at the games, and it's a perspective from his view, and it's like about his love life and his insecurities and whatnot. It's like, this is interesting. Okay, so yeah, I'll be very curious to see where that show goes from here. We'll talk about it more next week, but yeah, next week we'll do the first 2 episodes of Win or Lose to coincide with this week's premiere. And I think that's the only other thing I watched on Disney Plus this week. Probably. Been watching I've been thrown on some other things on like HBO Max or Peacock or something like that. But
yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk all about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You can follow Cameron at revcabot.bsky.social. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah. Want to give a massive shout out to our most recent That Nerdy Site show. It was a spoiler cast for Brave New World, the Captain America film. Trevor and I had a lot of thoughts about it, but we kept it pretty tight on that episode as well. So it's a pretty tight, a little bit more than an hour-long spoiler cast on a film that I've been finding out that people like John, my brother-in-law, mentioned he listened to that episode to see if he wanted to go see it or not over last weekend. So I think we had some really poignant thoughts in that. He only listened to the spoiler-free section, of course, which you can also do if you haven't seen the movie yet. Listen to Trevor and I talk about it and make your decision about whether you want to go see the movie.
Yeah, it is. The more I think about that movie, the more it is like, this is such a weird, because it's much more of an Incredible Hulk sequel than it is a Captain America sequel, or even a Falcon and Winter Soldier sequel.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's such a weird thing to be doing a sequel from a movie from 2008.
Yeah.
Like,
also, yeah, there's also a lot
that
of
also doesn't have the character from that 2008 movie
Yes.
of the Hulk. Like, it is a sequel for all of the other characters from 2008's the Incredible Hulk, but not the Hulk himself, which is weird.
pretty weird.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely check that episode out. You can follow me at trevorjstarkey.bsky.social. I already mentioned next week's episode will be Win or Lose. And then, yeah, this week's That Nerdy Site show coming up. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, because I'm probably not going to get around to playing anything really on the new games front. Maybe I'll have had some time to put into Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about that depending on when we record. And I imagine we'll get some updated Citizen Sleeper thoughts from you.
Yes, I have a lot more updated thoughts on it.
Like most of my time the last 2 weeks since we talked about Civ 7 has still been just playing more and more Civ 7. And I don't really have, I went long enough on that a couple weeks ago. I don't need to talk about that again. So yeah. But yeah, shout outs to that. Keep an eye out there for all the fun podcast stuff. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you as always for joining us. Stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed, and whip.